Yes, my name's Chris Outen. I'm the director at Kwinana Industries Council, and it was a pleasure to be invited to address you today. My subject is around the circular economy in the context of industrial symbiosis with an industrial water use theme. And so may I say a big hello to you all from Australia. G'day. I want to redefine industrial symbiosis away from the world view and give you the Chris Outen view and apply it to the Western Trade Coast, which is the major industrial area located only 40 kilometres south of Perth's, in Western Australia, Perth's CBD. So industrial symbiosis, product, utility and byproduct exchanges, right? Well, I'm going to show you that that's only about 30% of the story, but a bit on that. I'll focus on that a little bit later on. Just general information, Kwinana Industries Council, KIC, was incorporated as an industry association in 1991, operating in essentially the same way as a Chamber of Commerce does. We're geographically focused entirely on the Western Trade Coast industrial area, and it's from within that industrial region that we draw our membership. We've got 14 full member companies, and you'd know some of the names: Alcoa, BHP, companies like that, BP, and another 20 or so associate members, and we're 100% funded by our members. We're regarded as one of the major voices of industry, and we've earned a well-deserved reputation for respectful and honest industrial advocacy. These are the suburbs of the Western Trade Coast, the industrial suburbs. In orange is the Australian Marine Complex, or AMC. This area focuses on shipbuilding and maintenance, defence industries and specialist resource fabrication and subsea engineering. In the yellow, that's the original heavy industrial core, otherwise known as the Kwinana Industrial Area. You might have heard of that. It was established in 1955 with the BP oil refinery being the first one. The Rockingham Industry Zone is the light green area down the bottom and is a mixture of heavy and general industrial zones. And interestingly, it's where our emerging Lithium Valley industries are being located. Latitude 32, the purple area, is largely undeveloped, and it's likely to become the place where an expansion of the heavy and general industrial core will occur. So we've got a lot of room to grow. Collectively, all of these industrial areas are referred to as the Western Trade Coast, which is officially recognised as Western Australia's premier industrial area. Some characteristics. Around 30,000 workers, direct and indirect, attribute their employment to the Western Trade Coast, and 2/3 of those live within 15 kilometres of their place of employment. And the economic contribution of the Western Trade Coast is around about 16 billion into the state economy each year. 2/3 of the area is still vacant, so there's room to grow. And my role in all of this as director of KIC can be summarised as being focused on resolving issues that are of a collegiate interest to the members. So I don't look after the interests of just one member, it has to be 2 or 3 or more. And finally, the Kwinana industrial area, the industrial old core, or the yellow on that previous map, is literally one of the leading examples in the world of industrial symbiosis at work, with over 150 exchanges occurring on commercial terms and on a continual basis. And I'll talk about this a bit more shortly with you. Here's a broadly accepted definition of industrial symbiosis from an academic by the name of Lombardi. It's a fairly standard definition, but some of the key words include diverse organisations or a complex industrial cluster, transactions that stand on their own commercial characteristics, inputs and outputs to improve business outcomes. Water use in the heavy industrial core is not an entirely closed circuit. It comes in the form of new, fresh products sold to users as either groundwater from the superficial aquifer or potable water from our government potable water supplier. It enters reuse systems as byproducts in various forms: steam, demineralised or distilled water, wastewater to be cleaned up and reused or disposed of out of the system. In 1990, the synergy exchanges looked like this. There were 17 companies participating in about 30 exchanges. So that's 30 years ago. There were no water-related synergies in the mix. And so people ask me, how did these exchanges come about all those years ago? And my answer is usually along these lines. They came about by the best way. It was organic, company to company, industry folk engaged in conversations, many of which were facilitated by the KIC through conversations had during our board and committee meetings, and prompted by the drive to lower their cost bases and increase their competitive ability. And so here's what it looks like in 2013, 7 years ago. Unfortunately, it's our most recent schematic, but we are in the process of having it redone. And I must stress here that there was no government involvement in the development of these exchanges, aside from decisions to locate the heavy industries in the KIA all those years ago. It's my considered view that this self-generated organic growth is the best approach. There are several new exchanges that have occurred in recent years, and most, but not all, of them are linked to the new emerging metals industry coming into the industrial area. I said before that I considered the world's view of industrial symbiosis as limiting, and thus it seriously undersells what potential benefits it can bring to a truly symbiotic and circular industrial economy. And this schematic shows the product and byproduct synergy dimension, as I call it. But there are three other dimensions that are essential for productive industrial-based circular economy. The four dimensions of industrial symbiosis are firstly, as per the formal definition I gave you earlier about the research of byproducts. This first dimension of industrial symbiosis, as you can see, is very strong in Kwinana. Here are the other three synergy dimensions: the skilled workforce dimension, the support industry dimension, and the governance dimension, as I call them. I call this the KIC, short for Kwinana Industries Council, the KIC 4 model of industrial symbiosis. And here's what it looks like in a graphic. It's a decision support tool I've developed to assist an individual company to select an industrial area which exhibits a best fit for it across all four dimensions. So stage one, which is across the top, and you'll see on the right-hand side, I've filled out one of these little matrices with the Kwinana Industrial Area Assessment. So stage one, industrial areas are evaluated across each dimension, given a quartile rating based upon the degree to which each dimension is present. And you can see this is presented as a matrix. Stage two, which is down the bottom, the individual company self-assesses against the same four dimensions, and in doing so produces a quartile-based matrix depicting its own characteristical locational requirements. And then we have stage three, where the company looks for the best fit profile to the profile exhibited by a specific industrial area. The KIC4 model's matrix approach to matching individual industries to selected industrial areas has been developed informally through my many years of experience with individual companies struggling to find the most suitable industrial areas, and is the basis of a PhD I'm working towards at the moment. I'll briefly explain the remaining three of the four dimensions now. So the skilled workforce dimension. The human resource synergy within the Western Trade Coast refers to the 30,000 highly skilled and experienced workers that are directly and indirectly employed in the industrial area. 2/3 of these workers live within 15 kilometres of where they work. And interestingly, this means the industrial area is surrounded by residential communities that understand industry. And we see this as an important side benefit of this synergy dimension. What many are in fact happy to do is to move between companies within the industrial area, in preference to moving away from the industrial area, to advance their experience base and for taking promotions. When a new company builds its plant in Kwinana, it will more than likely attract workers from within the local area. The new company starts up with experienced employees, and we've seen that happen. Now, to the support industry dimension, this is the third dimension. Surrounding the industrial area is a belt of companies that exist to service the nearby major industries, manufacturing and refining industries located in the core. These businesses are the expert fabricators, constructors, engineering workshops, plant and labour hire suppliers, and equipment maintainers. There's a financial advantage in these support industries being located close by to big industry. They are the customers, as opposed to building or servicing in regional or remote areas where these service industries can't sustain themselves. Big industry has a strategic advantage in having the support industries close by because, aside from being on the industry's doorstep, these support industries deliver top quality local content, products and services and have a local reputation to uphold. And why is that important? Because a great reputation for service and quality is in their long-term best interests. To the governance synergy now. Here in Australia, we have 3 tiers of government, unfortunately. We have a national government via our Federation of States and Territories, a state government system, and a local government system. And my word, this can be a challenge. This can be challenging. This can be a challenging dimension within which to work. It is the most complex of the 4 dimensions and has the most room for improvement, might I say. In this dimension, I am talking about policy leadership, regulation, strategic planning, support infrastructure, planning and environmental approvals, and business development work. So the governance synergy, the public governance of industry, needs firstly to be about clear long-term national or state policy leadership, and secondly to be about the facilitation of the common use infrastructure that industry needs for it to compete in international markets. And please do note I use the word facilitate, not provide. Modern day governments don't need to pay for the heavy infrastructure for industry, like freight rail systems, roads and ports. The private sector, as you would know, is ready, willing and able to make these investments under public-private partnership arrangements. But why stop there? I say maybe we could have a discussion about a free trade zone or a special economic zone for the Western Trade Coast. In Australia, we seem to be frightened by this concept, and I know you in the Northern Hemisphere are not. I'm envious. We could look at a development board to remove the problematic silo mentality approach of the public service departments to governance. This is something I'm currently proposing to the state government, carefully of course. Achieving these would be a worthy goal in the governance synergy space, but that's one for another day. The challenge for this synergy dimension is for it to fulfill its role in the facilitating an efficient infrastructure environment so that industry can thrive. And really, it's as simple as that. Now to water. There's been much research over here into the sources and uses of water for industry in Kwinana over many years. The data obtained has driven water recycling initiatives over probably 20 years, and the sources and use profile in this slide has certainly changed somewhat over that time. The main point of the pie chart shown here is to show that groundwater is the largest source of incoming processed water at about 56%, with recycled water coming in second place with 18%. Now, recycled water is wastewater that goes through a reverse osmosis process and is sent back out into industry. So here's the schematic you saw before, and I've doctored it to show you how the water synergies can come together in a practical sense. You don't need to know, it's the same 2013 synergy schematic, but I've highlighted the water-related exchanges, and you don't need to worry about the detail of the actual exchanges. It's the principles I want to show you. So what does it suggest? What does it say to you? For me, it says integration, dynamic exchanges, mutual benefit, multiple forms of the resource, company-to-company exchanges, the presence of third-party water providers, commercial contracts, mutual willingness. So first to the product exchanges in this schematic. What's the nature of the exchanges? Well, there are very many exchanges that are not listed on the schematic. For example, new processed water introduced from outside of the industrial area. Usually we call that city water. Water sources for initial use from groundwater bores. Nearly 60% of the required water of around 30 gigalitres is required annually. I'm ignoring that. Managed aquifer recharge using treated wastewater is also not included because it hasn't actually begun as a new source of water yet. But the research has been done, it will work, and it will augment groundwater supplies. And the last one I haven't included is water reuse within a particular site or company, as most, if not all, will have implemented numerous micro-circular reuse initiatives within the confines of their sites. So with these exclusions, there are around 20 specific product and byproduct exchanges between companies shown here, such as water polishing or demineralisation for reuse in, for example, cooling towers or complex and specialised chemical processes, water reuse for various processes following decontamination and purification, steam production and supply for heat or distilled water, and stormwater collection and use. But what relevance do the other three synergy dimensions have in this circular water economy in the Kwinana industrial area? The skilled workforce dimension, the environmental engineers and managers are driving the installation of the technical advancements to achieve greater water efficiencies and thus savings. Skilled operators in the area of reverse osmosis, pipelines for steam and process water, process management, industrial project managers and financiers. All of these skill sets and much more are available within the complex industrial area. The skilled workforce dimension is a necessary part of the industrial business and innovation environment that is needed to initiate the very first synergy dimension. Now to the support industry dimension. There are around, as I said, 20 major core companies located within the schematic, and another 30 companies are shown, and several more that are not shown. The non-core companies, such as the seawater desalination plant, the wastewater reclamation plant, and others, are considered to be operating within the support industry dimension. Also included are the pipe manufacturers, technology designers, fabricators, and installer companies. Their presence in or around the industrial core means the core industries can access the support industry materials and services competitively. This interactivity is at the heart of the support industry synergy dimension. And to the governance dimension. Does the state government have a policy about water reuse? It does. And the targets set by government drive a response from industry. Do the water regulators enforce the quality of water slated for reuse? They certainly do, and they can make it pretty tough to achieve increasingly higher regulatory standards. Governance in the individual companies, do they have water reuse targets? Many do, and this drives a willingness to invest in water-saving technologies. These are examples of the governance synergy dimension operating at multiple levels to drive and respond to change. But a word of caution, if one of the synergy dimensions is absent or is present but dysfunctional, the opportunity for a well-functioning circular water economy, in this case water economy, but any of those, is seriously diminished. So to my summary of points, I'll do just briefly. Industrial symbiosis in the Western Trade Coast is alive and well. In fact, it's one of the world's leading examples of industrial symbiosis in action. It creates the opportunity for incoming companies to minimise their ongoing operating costs, so it's good for the bottom line, for shareholders and for the environment. It's also good for the businesses located nearby. The bigger the industrial base in the core, in the industrial cluster, the stronger is its support industry presence, the more robust is the workforce skill set and availability, and the more will new industry be attracted to locate nearby. The stronger the core is, the greater is its ability to influence the governance synergy through business advocacy. Governance, the fourth dimension of industrial symbiosis, has a role in removing infrastructure constraints and bottlenecks on the collective industrial cluster, whether this be by funding it themselves or by partnering with the private sector. Debottlenecking public sector infrastructure constraints to industry is good industrial governance and is good for the state's economy. This is not rocket science, as we all know. Achieving a circular economy in a complex industrial cluster such as Kwinana is made a great deal easier when the four synergy dimensions are strong, visible, supportive, and energetically embraced by all. And as we know, with synergistic relationships, the value of the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So that's it, folks. Here are my contact details. If you'd like to actually take a guided tour of the Western Trade Coast, I have recorded a video of the whole thing for you. It's on the KIC website under the Library tab and under the Videos sub-tab. And I suggest if you do, make sure you've got a wet Saturday or Sunday afternoon with a bag of chips and a couple of beers because it's 2 hours long. So thank you to the conference organisers for the opportunity to speak to the delegates on the subject, which is clearly dear to my heart. Please do enjoy the remainder of your conference, and I believe I'm now available to take some questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for this excellent talk and a very interesting talk about circular economy in Australia. So please, anyone who has a question, please, maybe you can write me in the chat so that I can make a list, or just since we're only 7. Yeah.
Can I just ask the
Yes.
question?
Yes, just ask your question.
Or it's more like a remark. You're very much focused on your own history in the park, and what you have done is wonderful, it's impressive. But I have a Google Maps here before me with the map of the whole area. I see so much empty space. And the other way, I'm a process engineer, and I did some projects in diving into the processes, have a wide wall, and let the people from the factory analyze all the unit operations and what happens within the unit operations, and where you have products, byproducts, and what they waste. And put that in a system, and that will be very, very surprising how much you can save and how many wastes can be reused. And that's so that's one layer below what you are doing.
Yes.
And the other thing is when you look at Google Maps, all the place, and then the living quarters nearby the whole industry, it asks for a big plan for the next 25 years.
Yes, you know, and in the governance synergy, there has never been a strategic plan written by the state government for that industrial area.
I thought so.
Yeah. So, look, the industrial area has developed in spite of that. The synergies in the schematic, you'll see, that's presented on our website. You can see it on the website. And as I say, it's developed because of companies talking to companies, not by government intervention. We're currently running a project. Yes. So do you see there's a yellow line running right vertical through and a big red blot, orange area. See the big red orange area? Just to the east or left or right of that is a long road which is called it's one of our freeways.
The Kwinana Freeway.
Yeah, Kwinana Freeway. And so the industrial area runs right from the top, and on the coast you see the point out into the water, runs from there quite a long way further. This is running about halfway down. There's another whole lot to go further south under there. probably another 4 kilometres even. Yes, so it runs down to where it says East Rockingham. Okay,
Yes.
it's further north. No, go further north. Yeah, stop there. You see where it says Rockingham Beach, just in the coast?
Yes.
On the shore. So it runs from there where it says East Rockingham, and there's that orange bit again up the top. So it runs all the way up there. Now, I said in there there's 6,000 hectares in the Western Trade Coast, and there's only 2,000 hectares developed. So the whole place has huge potential. It's got a world-class buffer zone that's well managed, and we're getting a new port. The state government here has announced it's going to build a new port. So do you see on the coast, around about the middle, there's a little marker which says Fremantle Ports, Kwinana Bulk Terminal. You see that on the coast? Up from your cursor, keep going up, keep running up, keep running up, stop there. Yeah, so where your cursor is now, on the coast, is going to be from that jetty below the word Fremantle Ports to the next jetty up is going to be a land-backed port.
Okay.
Yeah, so from the lower jetty that you can see where it says bulk jetty, right up to the top of that screen will be a new land-backed port, probably 500 metres wide, and it's about 2 kilometres long. And that's going to provide a new freight route back to the freeway for high, wide loads, dangerous goods, all grades separated. So that's very exciting. And what that's going to do is announce to the world that this is an industrial area that's open for new entrants, and they'll be welcomed, and there's room to grow.
But the interesting thing is that when you see the high industrial areas, and you see there's that orange one with the Hope Valley, that's also a wonderful name. It's everything. It's industry. It's like nature reserves.
Yes.
This asks for a big plan with a complete redevelopment from above, plus within the industries that you go to the smallest processes and try to make an inventarization of what happens, because it asks for it.
Yes. So with the students that we've engaged with through Martin Ander from Murdoch University here, and he's been a speaker, I'm filling in for Martin, with the students, the schematic, 2013 schematic I showed you is in the process of being reviewed by the students. And what I want to do with that is convert it to a digital platform located on our website where you will be able to interrogate it. So if you want sulfuric acid or caustic soda, or you've got some sort of additive to the cement making process that's a waste product of your own, you'll be able to interrogate the platform to find out who are the suppliers and receivers of those sorts of materials. And so it will be, when we have the software loaded, I will be able to load in new companies as they come to the Kwinana industrial area, and they'll be able to interrogate to find their own synergy relationships directly with the companies, because we'll have the provider and the receiver located.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.